Hey guys, welcome to another 72 DPI video. Today we are going to be learning how to play the 2 to 4 player card game Boss Monster. This is a really fun, simple to learn, very minimal game. It's in a very small box, so it doesn't take up a lot of room. It supports, like I said, 2 to 4 players, and it's just a lot of good fun. So before we get into the gameplay and the actual phases of the game, we're going to talk about the game overview first. So in the game Boss Monster, you're going to be playing as one of the 8 different bosses that come with the standard game itself. And this is kind of like the end boss. Think of it as like the end boss in a side-scrolling video game, a retro video game. So it's a very pixelated artwork style that they've got going on here. But you're essentially playing that role. Each different boss has its own treasure icon, so it tells you what type of heroes that it attracts and things like that. It also has a XP, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then also a level up. So as you play through the game, your boss will level up and do a certain ability, and it's kind of unique to each one of the different bosses. So with that being said, the name of the game is to build a dungeon, attract your heroes, and kill them in your dungeon. You win the game by earning 10 souls, and you lose the game by earning 5 wound tokens. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But let's go ahead and talk about the setup first. First and foremost, as far as passing the cards out, everybody is going to get 5 of the room deck cards. So these range in from a couple different variations. So you've got a couple different monster rooms, and then you have what's called trap rooms, and then you also have something that's called like an advanced monster or advanced trap room. So let's see here. So this is an advanced monster room right here. It's got the gold icon versus the silver icon, and then it also says advanced monster room. And likewise for the trap room, it has advanced trap room. If I could find one, here's one. So it has the gold icon versus the silver icon, and it says advanced. Parts of the card that we will be looking at here. So the heart icon tells you how much damage that room does to your hero as they move through it. The icon down here is the treasure icon that tells you what type of hero that room attracts. And then each room has a special ability. Some of the abilities can range in from increasing the room surrounding it, giving itself a certain buff if something is around it. It allows you to destroy certain creatures or certain heroes. It allows you to do a wide range of things. So each one is unique. There's a couple copies of each of the cards. However, the cool thing is they've included different artwork for almost all of the cards, which is really nice to see. So like I said, you'll start the game with 5 of the room cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you get 2 spell cards. These spell cards have a couple different icons on them. Down the bottom left-hand corner tells you when you'll be able to play those, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So there's 2 phases that you'll be able to play those at, and like I said, we'll get into the phases in just a moment. But each spell has a specific ability, and it's some are attack and some are defense, and it really kind of shakes up the gameplay aspect. We already talked about our boss monster. So when you set the game up, everybody gets the 5 room deck cards, 2 spells, and 1 boss. You put your boss down so everybody can see. There's no hidden information on that front. And then at the very beginning of the game, you get to pick one of your ordinary or standard cards, so the non-advanced cards, and you get to build that first. So you're going to be building from the right to the left. So you always start with your boss as kind of like the boss chamber, and then you play a card like so, just to the left of him. And then once you've built to the left, you can choose to build another card to the left. So you can go and build this way, or you can build on top of it. You can do a couple different things when you're building on top of the cards, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later during that phase of the gameplay. So at the very beginning of the game, you're going to have your boss monster out, and you're going to get a free build to play before the game even starts. So you play that card, and then from there you've got your room deck to the right here. There's going to be a space for a discard pile, and then you have your spell deck. So any card that gets discarded, whether it's a room deck or a spell card, all goes into the center spot here. The center place here is considered the town, so this is where the adventurers stay. Your adventurers are broken up into two decks. You've got a hero deck, and then you've got an epic hero deck. And they're color coordinated by the silver and the gold backs. Obviously, the epic heroes are a little bit stronger and do a little bit more damage. They're worth more points, and they deal more damage to you if they get through your dungeon. The other thing to note is at the bottom of the decks for the hero cards, there are these player silhouettes. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can see 3 players there. There's one with 4. So these you take out based on how many players you have. So we've set up a 2-player game here. So we take out all the 3s and all the 4s for both the regular heroes and the epic heroes. So these 2 decks should just be made up of the 2 and 1 player hero decks. So those can kind of fluctuate depending on how hard you want to make it. There's a couple different knobs you can turn with this game. They give you some examples in the actual book itself. So if you want to make it harder, you can do that. Yeah, so right now we're just playing with the level 1 and level 2, or 2 and 1 player heroes. So like I said, this is the town, but when you start the game, you'll flip over your heroes and they'll go all right here, and then as you're building and attracting and luring heroes from the town into your dungeon, you'll either slay them within the dungeon and then they'll flip over on this side with their coin side up. So the heroes here are worth 1 coin, and the epic heroes are worth 2 coins, showing on the back. And then likewise on the front, the heroes are worth 1 wound if they get through your dungeon into your boss, and the epic heroes are worth 2 wounds. Like I said at the top, the object of the game is to get 10 souls, which is displayed by which is displayed with the coins here on the back of the cards. So it's a really easy game to set up, and depending on how many people you have, determines how many heroes you're going to flip over, starting with the beginning of the turn. So at the beginning of the turn phase, you will flip over heroes equal to the number of players. So we've got 2, so we flip over cards here. And the way you flip cards over is you always flip them over towards the hero deck. So the next round that you play, you'll move these down and flip over 2 more in that fashion. So we'll constantly be moving these down and shifting the newest ones closest to the deck itself. Also, during the beginning of the turn phase, each player will draw a single room card. And beginning with the player that has the boss that has the highest XP, that player will go first. So XP is listed down here at the bottom. So the King Croc has 800 XP, and the Seductress has 600 XP. So this player would go first. So next up is the building phase, and this is pretty straightforward. Whoever has the most XP gets to build first. They will play a card face down and one of their room cards. So everybody, you can choose not to play a room card if you don't want to. You can also choose to play a room card next to one of your other rooms. You can only have up to 4 rooms, not including your boss chamber. Or you can choose to upgrade a room, which makes you go from a monster room to advanced monster room. The key and the thing to think about there is it has to share at least one of the treasure icons as the original. So I couldn't play something that has a book icon, even though it's a advanced monster room, on this monster room, because it doesn't share a treasure icon. It would have to be something that has that sword icon to upgrade. However, this room says you cannot build an advancement room on the Neanderthal cave. So that brings me to the next point. You can actually override and put a different room over top of it. So I can actually take another room that is not an advanced, the ordinary or standard room as we call them, and play that over top of it as one of my options during the building phase. So this way I can say, okay, well, if I don't have any sword icon advanced rooms, but I do have one of the book icons, I need to play this one first, and then the next turn I can play the advancement one on top of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose to play this one next to it. This person is just going to play this one. So what we'll do is in order, so I play first, and then everybody flips over the cards at the exact same time. It doesn't matter really to much extent, but since everybody's flipping the cards over at once and revealing, you do go as far as using the rooms. If there's some type of when you build this effect, you start with the player that has priority, which is the person that has the most XP that round. So now that everybody has their cards built, or their rooms built rather, we move on to the bait phase, and this is where you attract or lure in adventurers from the town. So what you want to look at is the icons that are on each of the different adventurers or the heroes. So this is a fighter, he's got the little sword icon, so whoever has the most sword icons in their dungeon, including their boss, would attract that person. So I've got 2, 3, 4, so and my opponent only has 1, so I would definitely attract the fighter. So when you attract or lure the hero to your dungeon, you just set them next to it, and you would basically put them in order as you pull them out of town. And remember, keep in mind, it's always the first one in is always the first one out. So if both of these were the fighters, for example, this guy would go first, and then this guy would go next, because this one is closer to the deck. So we're going to put the fighter here at mine. This is a money bag for the thief. It looks like my opponent has a sword, has the little Ankh icon, and a book. So in this instance, nobody gets this thief because nobody has. It's tied 0-0 for the money bag. So they stay inside of in town. Okay, so now that we have gone through the bait phase, the next phase is the adventure phase, and this is where you take your fighter or the adventurers that in front of you and go through your dungeon. So some key information to look at here. All the heroes themselves, they actually have a little bit of a text on here. None of them really do anything as far as like gameplay aspects go, but there's some really funny flavor text in there, so I definitely recommend. There's a lot of kind of tongue-in-cheek humor in there. So anyway, so this fighter has 6 hit points, and he deals 1 damage or leaves me with 1 wound if he gets all the way through. So you just basically go through, so 6 minus 1 is 5, 5 minus 4, because we've got 3 plus the 1 is 1, so he in fact does go through my dungeon, and you leave him face up to signify that you have a wound. However, if you have a spell card that has the axe symbol on it, so this is a good time to talk about spells and when you can cast them. So we've got 2 spells here. They each have this little axe icon at the bottom left-hand corner. These mean I can play them anytime during the adventure phase. Now there's also a card type that has a little hammer in the bottom left-hand corner. This means that I can play this spell anytime during the building phase. Once the building phase is completed, you can no longer play this spell. Likewise, you cannot play these spells during the building phase because they have a hammer. Now there is a card here that has both the hammer and the axe. You can play those at any time during the game whether it's the build phase or the adventure phase. Okay, so starting over with this round to kind of illustrate how these work is let's kind of go back to the very beginning of the dungeon phase, and just by using pure math and just saying, okay, my dungeon is dealing 5 damage, his hit points are 6, so clearly by the end of this he's going to deal me a wound. So I can look through my spells, and I find out that I have a teleportation ability. So this says, send a hero in your dungeon back to the first room of your dungeon. And then it continues to move through the room as normal for the rest of the turn. So what I'll do is I'll let him go through. So this will bring him down to 5, this will bring him down to 1, and then I will play teleportation, which will bring him back to the beginning, dealing him 1 damage and then 4 damage again. But since he's at 1, this one room is going to kill him, so he'll flip over and count for a soul to my count. So I've got 1 soul of my 10 needed. The spell that I cast will go to the discard pile, and that'll be the end of my adventure turn. Since my opponent doesn't have any heroes ready to go through his dungeon, Then we move on to the end of the turn. So this kind of triggers a couple different things. Some cards will have different effects at the end of the turn, and some rooms have the same thing. So just be cautious of that. Okay, so since my opponent doesn't have any heroes to go through his dungeon, this is the end of the adventure phase, and we move into the end of the phase, which basically is kind of like a cleanup phase. If there's anything like as far as a room goes that happens at the end of the turn, this would happen now, and you basically begin the next round. And that would start with the beginning of the round, so we would flip over 2 new heroes. So we kind of scooch them down a little bit. So we now have 3 heroes. So we have a mage that has the book and 8 hit points. We have another thief that has 8 hit points and has the has the money bag symbol. We each draw a room card. And then we move on to the build phase. And remember, this is where you could possibly play one of your spell cards or anything like that. Keep in mind, you don't have to build if you don't want to. And if you do play a spell card, it doesn't take the place of your building card. So you can build a card or build a room and also play a spell at the same time, as long as it's got the hammer in the bottom left-hand corner. So let's see here. So we know that there's no, in this instance, there is no sword characters, so we're not going to have to worry about attracting these guys. However, if we did want to attract them, we would have to pick one of these abilities. So if we went ahead and just did, let's just say we put this card down, and we'll flip this guy over. And since I have the higher XP, I flip mine first. Or, I'm sorry, we flip them all at the same time. And let's see here. So here's another example of where things can go wrong. So I said, I was going to try and attract that mage, so I played a book. However, I didn't account for the fact that the boss for my opponent has a book, and they also played one that has a book. So that person would attract the mage. So you basically keep playing in this fashion over and over and over again until you have one player either hits 10 souls, or all but one player has hit 5 wound tokens. So that's really kind of how you play. The other aspect to kind of think about too is while you're building your rooms up, you can build up to 5 rooms. Once you hit that 5th room, at the end of the build phase, your boss has a level up ability that will trigger, and that will only trigger once. Basically, you can mark it with a coin or just kind of remember it, so you can tilt it if you want to, or tap like this, so that way you know that you've built or you've leveled up and built 5 spaces. But chances are you're only doing it once, so you're not keeping track of how many times you're casting it. So the level up ability for this boss is search the room deck or discard pile for an advanced monster room. You may immediately build that room over a room with the matching treasure types. So you basically get to add a free card. You can go through the discard pile if there's any room cards in there, or you can go through the room deck itself and find an advancement there. Alright guys, so that is Boss Monster. Like I said, it's a very straightforward game. There are actually some expansions. I think there's 3 different expansions that you can pick up for this game to add monsters, add heroes, add spells, and things like that. All in all, it's a really fun game. Highly, highly recommend it. I really do appreciate you guys watching the video. I'll leave a link down in the description below if you're interested in purchasing the game. We'll put that up there for you guys. So highly recommend it, and keep an eye out for our review, and make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss any future videos on our channel. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.